So we'll start our discussion from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 9, where Dhruva Maharaj he has offered his prayers to Lord Krishnagarbha. Where, like in last session, we have discussed that how Dhruva Maharaj is aspiring to have the association of devotees. He says in the association of devotees, devotion for the Lord becomes incessant like a river. And he gives example of like a Ganga. As Mother Ganges, the river Ganga, she flows from Himalaya to Ganga Sagar, this place where she meets the ocean, Indian Ocean. So when you see at the beginning where the Ganga starts flowing, that place is called as a Gomukha. It's a very small and narrow place from where Ganga originates. And if you go along that river, you will see that as she goes further, she flows further, she crushes down all the obstacles, the big mountains, and she flows, makes her path. And when she comes to Ganga Sagar, it is almost like a 35 miles, that wide. That can't fit in your eyes. So you can't make it out whether it is a Ganges or whether it is an ocean. So he says that my devotion should be like that, incessant, without stopping anywhere, coming over all the obstacles, crushing down the obstacles, and just flowing toward the ocean. And as it comes to the ocean, then you will not be able to make it out whether it is a Ganges or whether it is an ocean. So they both become like they gel so much with each other. So they are called as a Ganga Sagar. It's Ganga also and it's ocean also. So the same way, when someone performs his devotional service to the Lord, it may start with a small endeavor, maybe just coming to the temple and hearing about the Lord. But if you keep that consistency into that, then one day it will come like the devotion in the Lord, or the devotee and his devotion to the Lord, and the Lord himself, you won't be able to find the difference between them, because both they will have the same qualities. And that's why in the next verse, which we are going to discuss today, he again explains the glory, why one should associate with the devotees. Tena smarantya priyam misham martyam ye chanvadha suradagruhavittadaraha ye tvad abjanabhavadiya padaravinda saugandhyalubdhardaye shukrita prasanga. He says, O Lord, who have a lotus navel, if a person happens to associate with a devotee whose heart always hankers after your lotus feet, seeking always their fragrance, he is never attached to the material body or in a bodily relationship to offspring, friends, home, wealth, and wife, which are very, very dear to materialistic persons. Indeed, he does not care for them. In the purport, Prabhupada says, a special advantage in devotional service is that devotees not only enjoy the transcendental pastimes of the Lord by hearing and chanting and glorifying them, but also are not very much attached to their bodies, unlike the yogis who are too attached to the body and who think that by performing bodily gymnastic exercises, they will advance in spiritual consciousness. Yogis are generally not very much interested in devotional service. They want to regulate the breathing process. This is simply a bodily concern. Here Dhruva Maharaj plainly says that a devotee has no bodily interest. He knows that he is not the body. From the very beginning, therefore, without wasting time in bodily exercises, a devotee searches out a pure devotee and simply, by his association, becomes more advanced in spiritual consciousness than any yogi. Because a devotee knows that he is not the body, he is never affected by bodily happiness or distress. He is not interested in bodily relationship with wife, children, home, bank balance, etc., or in the distress and happiness which comes from these things. This is the special advantage of being a devotee. This status of life is possible only when a person is interested in associating with a pure devotee who always enjoys the fragrance of the lotus feet of the Lord. So here he says, he compares the devotees of the Lord with the bumblebees. As bumblebees, they are too attached to the fragrance of lotus, and they always keep hovering around the lotus flower. So same way, the devotees, they are always hankering to just be around the lotus feet of the Lord, because they are too much attached to the Lord's wonderful glorification, to see their Lordship, Nam, Rupa, Guna, and Dham. Lord, He manifests Himself in four forms with His full potencies, with His name, Rupa, the Archa Vigra deity form of the Lord. Then His pastimes, His Leela, His wonderful activities. And Dham, abode where He comes and performs His pastimes. And devotees, they are too attached to associate with this four. So we can make it out who is devotee. There are people, they say we are spiritual, we are religious people. But to go to temple and visit once in a week, that is also a big austerity for them. They will come once in some festival and they will show up in the society that they are religious. They call themselves as a bhakta, devotee. But that's not a devotee. Devotee means who is, as explained in previous verse, prabhahita. His way of performing devotional service is incessant, like a flow of river. There is no gap, there is no, what we can say, obstacle, not obstacles. Gap is the proper word, that they don't keep any gap, that goes continuously. They perform akhandita, without any gap in their devotion. Like few people, they chant today 10 rounds, tomorrow maybe one. Sometimes because they are in the temple with the association of devotee and someone who is chanting like a 40 rounds and they are there with him, so they can go up to 20 rounds. Sometimes they wake up at 7 o'clock, sometimes at 12:30, sometimes at 4:30. So it's not a continuous. It's like a that what they for heart, that what they call? Huh? Huh. Like a heart rate, you see that it goes straight, then goes up, goes down, and goes. So it happens like that. It's not constant. So we can't call that person as a devotee. But devotee means who is constantly engaged in those things. And only such a devotee will have wonderful consciousness. And what will be that? If anything comes materially, any comforts that he gets, he is not attached to them. And that we can see in the episode of Vritrasura. When he offers prayers to their lordship, he says, Nanaka prishtam na cha parameshtyam न सार्वभौमं न रसाधिपत्यं न योगसिद्धिर्पुनर्भवं वा samanjasastvavirahayyakangshe. He says, Nanaka prashtam, na parameshram. I don't want the sovereignty over this earth, or neither I desire for the rulership of Brahmaloka. Na sarvabhaumam, na rasadhipatyam. I don't want rulership of any planet, but I do need association of your devotees. He says, even I don't want this perfection of yogas, because most of the people, when they consider themselves religious, by practicing yoga. But Prabhupada, in the purport, he clearly explains this practice of so-called yoga today is nothing but making your body strong for sense gratification. It's not for the real purpose of yoga. The first aphorism of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, it says that yoga chitta nirodhakaha. What is meant by yoga? Yoga means chitta nirodhaka, controlling your chitta, the mind, the propensity of mind to think about. Yoga means to control that. But what today people they do? Some sort of some breathing exercise to increase their stamina to enjoy physically. That's not the purpose of yoga. And even if someone attends that also, what the use? This body is going to go away one day. Or maybe they prolong their lifespan, because our lifespan is never considered in years. It considered how many breaths that you have breathed throughout the life. It's counted on that. If someone prolongs his breathing, he will prolong his lifespan. But if that lifespan is not used in the Lord's service, then it is waste of time. And that's why even Vritrasura, he says, Mama uttama shloka janeshu sakhyam samsara chakre brahmataha swakarmabhi. Oh my Lord, I'm traveling all over the universe in different bodies according to the karma that I have performed. And because of influence of your twan mayaya, because of the influence of your external energy, Atmaja Grihadara Gehishu. I'm getting attached to my sons, my wife, and my house. But my Lord, I may be anywhere due to my karma. I beg at your lotus feet. Keep me away from the people who are so attached to the bodily concept of life. Because Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha. In the association with the materialistic person will increase the desire to enjoy in this material world. And that will keep us away from the real peace and bliss of mind, that is devotional service to the Lord. If you are too engaged in your own sense gratification, how you will try to gratify the senses of the Lord, which will be very difficult. And that's why he says, my Lord, Mama Uttama Shloka Janeshu Saukyam. Please give me benediction that I should always associate and have a friendship with Uttama Jana. So who are these Uttama Jana? The word Uttama in Sanskrit, it's the combination of two different roots. Uttamaha. Ut means elevate and Tama means ignorance. The people who are elevated from the mode of ignorance or who are enlightened. So those are Uttama. He says, Uttama Jana, those enlightened people, I should have friendship with them. And my Lord, give me that benediction. And as in the purport, Prabhupada says, this association of devotees makes us more advanced in a spiritual consciousness than any yogi. Because as Lord says in the last verse of 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it explains about Dhyana Yoga, the meditation, how one can perform the Ashtanga Yoga. And at the end of that chapter, Lord says, who is the greatest yogi? What's that verse? Shraddhavan bhajate yoma same yukta tamo mata. He says, that's the greatest yogi. Who? Yukta tamo mataha, who is engaged, who is in union with me, who is constantly engaged in thinking about the Lord. And devotees are those, they don't do any physical exercise for that. But what they do? They always associate with the other devotees, whose devotion is incessant, whose devotion is unalloyed, without any tinge of sense gratification, and who are constantly engaged in the devotional service. As he says in the 8th chapter, 14th verse of Bhagavad Gita, for whom Lord is very easy to attain? To those people, Nitya Yuktasya Yogina. Tasyaham Sulabha Partha Nitya Yuktasya Yogina. Who are Nitya, constantly, Yuktaha, engaged, thinking about the Lord. So that's the most important thing. And when someone associates with that person, what will happen? If you take iron near to the magnet, automatically that iron gets the magnetic qualities. All we know about that. So same way, when someone goes and start associating with the devotees, then he also becomes a devotee. There's a nice story. There was one dacoit. It was in some 16th century. And he was such a ruthless person. What he used to do, any traveler passerby from there, he used to grab him, take out all his possessions, and kill him. He just not only robbing them, but he used to kill them mercilessly. So one day, one devotee, as he was passing by there, so this dacoit came and he just grabbed him and he said, I'm going to kill you. He said, for what? Why do you want to kill me? I don't have anything to give you. I myself is a beggar, and what you are going to get by killing me? He said, that's my rule, Where come across here, I have to loot them, I have to steal away whatever they have, and I have to kill them. But that devotee was very powerful because he has done so much of his sadhana, so he was capable to show him his future. So as the devotee who was too attached to the absolute truth, when he started speaking to that person, his words were directly impacting on his brain. Previously, he never used to hear anyone, but here, because of the purity of that devotee, he started paying his attention to the words that spoken by the devotee. And then he came to his senses, actually. That's the effect of purity. It's always important who is speaking rather than what he is speaking. We see there are some professional orators. They are very skilled in public speaking. But what they speak and what they follow in their life, there is always difference. But there are some people who first follow what they speak. And because when they follow, that speaking gives tremendous strength, actually. and that impacts on the other people's life, because that never comes from here, that comes from here. So thing which comes from the heart, that reaches to the heart, and things which comes from the brain, that goes only to the brain. And to change your life, knowledge should go to your heart, not only in the brain. Otherwise, we have like Ravana, he was also a Vedantist, He was the great scholar of Vedas. But what the use of that knowledge? That he had only in the brains, not in his heart. So, when he heard about that, then he came to his sense and he said, "Can you save me from all these calamities? Would you like to help me in that?" Then that sadhu said, "Okay, I will do that." He gave him one dry twig uh, in his hand. He said that, "Take this. I can accept you as my disciple, but before that you need to get purified yourself. So go all the places around the Bharatvarsha, India, and wherever you get pure, where your heart will get changed and your sinful reaction will get cleansed up, then this twig will turn into green. It will start having leaves." So he said, "Okay." And then he started. And I don't think so. He may have passed another 10 or 12 kilometers. And it was like a 12 night. So he thought of just resting there, and next day he will continue with his journey. So as he was resting under the big banyan tree, he was able to hear the four different people they were speaking something about. And they were telling that we'll go and we burn this village and we'll take things out from here. So as he heard about that, as that person throughout the life, he just massacred hundreds of people. So he thought of that, I can kill this four also. Anyway, I'm going for pilgrimage. So somewhere I have done 100, another four, so 104. I will get purified myself. But at least that village will get saved. So he called them down. He said, "Come one by one. And I will tell you, because I'm master in that. I know how to do that." So that tree was so big, so one by one was coming down. And he was so expert without any weapons, he just killed one by one all of this food. And he said, "This is not the place where I can rest tonight. So better to leave this place and go somewhere else and take rest. And tomorrow morning I can travel." As he got up, he saw that twig started giving leaves. And that turned into green. So he was surprised. He said, "I murdered another four people, and how things have happened?" So quickly he took that twig and came back to that sadhu. And he said, Sadhu said, "Have you done pilgrimage and came back?" He said, "No, actually you told me that wherever it will turn into green and start giving leaves, I should come back. So I came to you because already it turned into." Then he said, "What happened?" Then he narrated the whole episode. See, because he associated with that pure devotees, his consciousness changed. He did the same things, what he was doing. But now those things has cleansed him away from all his sins, whatever he has done in his past. Because he was thinking for the betterment of others rather than for own sense gratification. And he followed the instruction given by sadhu, a devotee. So that's the glory of associating with the Uttama Jana, with associating with the devotees. So if you really want to change your life, the best way, find out the devotees and associate with them. And Prabhupada says, we have started this institute so that everyone can get that platform where they can meet pure devotees, where they can follow the path given by the pure devotees and change their lives. And we have millions of examples today, how they have changed their lives. So let's stick to the words of Prabhupada and try to associate with the devotees so that this Dehatma Buddhi from our heart will go away and we get more and more attached to their Lordship. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki